Guys, I'm back. Hope everybody had a good weekend. We're gonna swap these pans out right quick and get this dipstick tube off of here and put it on this other used transmission. This one's in pretty good shape. It was tested and it was good according to the junkyard. So we got to take all this stuff off, the junk that they snipped off, all the wiring harnesses and the grounds. And they got that bracket on the back that we had to take off to get it pulled. And then we will get that pan off, and then we'll go bolt it back up to the motor and start putting it back in. All right, I'm back, guys. I have found a transmission that I believe works. They said the other one worked, but clearly something was wrong with it. Excuse me. So I got this pan already off, and you know, the transmissions are going to have some shavings in them. It's normal to have some kind of metal, but it is way better than the other one. If you look, some of that's dirt, but there's not much in here. Just some little specks. Nothing that I'm willing to say I'm not putting this in for. So I believe this one's going to be all right. This one came out of a completely wrecked car in the junkyard, so I'm pretty sure it works just fine. So I got everything cleaned up. One thing I had to do, because these dang junkyard guys just like to go crazy when they're draining stuff. See that hole right there? They poked a hole in this. And this is a servo. This activates your band from one of your clutches. And they poked a hole in it, and it's not going to work too well. So I had to change that out. I went and already changed it out. It wasn't too hard. It was just 3 10mm bolts. Pretty simple. And so now we're going to put the pan back on. I'm going to reuse the gasket because they are reusable, but I am going to put some of this 1-minute gasket on, and just to help it out, because this is getting switched over to another transmission. So I'm going to put some of this stuff on it. That way, at least we can say we tried, right? Definitely want to, I probably should torque everything, but I don't torque everything, but I do try to torque stuff like this, because if you don't, there's a really good chance it's going to leak. So we're just going to set this on here without trying not to smear all the sealant off. I'm going to line up these holes. We're just going to get all these started in the holes. To start. Alright, now we're going to take the torque wrench here. I already got it all set up. And we are going to just go from the top to the bottom and get these things to 10. If you get a real fancy one, it'll vibrate, or it'll click and it'll stop turning when you get it to a certain point that you want. But this one doesn't do that. It just shows you the measurement. It's digital, but it doesn't give you no vibration or nothing, so you just kind of gotta watch it. Like I said, this kind of stuff here is about the only stuff I really torque, the major stuff. Like, I'm not going to torque a crankshaft position sensor down with this little 10mm bolt. I'm just going to get it tight, because there's some spots that, I mean, unless you have the whole motor out, there's really nothing you can do to get them torqued. And that kind of stuff's not a huge deal, as long as you don't over tighten it and break the sensor. But like I said, this stuff, and if you're like rebuilding the transmission or rebuilding an engine, you want to have the bolts torqued to the right spec. And of course, on anything else like tires, I'm guilty of it, not torquing tires. I just send them home. And I haven't had one fall off yet, but I have ran into some problems where if you got an aluminum wheel and you over tighten them, you can break the the stud, or you tighten it too much on the aluminum and it kind of welds itself to it, and then you got a whole nightmare on your hands. So, something to think about when you're doing tires. Definitely want to try to torque everything you can back so you don't have problems. So now the pan's back on, I'm going to strip a few more wires off. And one thing you want to make sure of, I never took this out, so it should be fine. So the torque converter, of course, obviously it's going to be standing up, but usually with rule of thumb, you want to make sure this is all the way set in there, because one, you won't be able to bolt up your flywheel usually. Sometimes you can and it's out, and then that's a whole other nightmare in itself. But you want to make sure this is all the way in, and basically all you do is you kind of just jiggle it up and down while you're rolling it. And I know this one's all the way in because I never took it out. So, but you shouldn't be able to get your hand all the way behind it. Some of them you can. This one you can kind of get it back there, but you can tell it's flush because I mean it can't go any further than where it's at right now. So that's one thing you want to make sure and have that all the way seated. And then, like I said, use Loctite on these torque converter bolts, and definitely torque those to spec, because those are some of the most important bolts on your whole car. And then, like I said, I'm going to strip everything down that I got to. I got to fix these connectors broke on the cooler line, so I'm going to have to get them out and change them. And I'll get all this ready, and I'll get it set over by the motor, and we'll get it bolted up and start getting it put back in the car. All right, I'll be right back. All right, guys, I told you I was going to do the valve cover gaskets on this, and the oil pressure sensor too. Haven't got to that yet, but basically, I mean, the valve covers are straightforward. You got 4 bolts, 8mm, and to get to them is what's a little tricky. On this side, you got to take the ignition coil bracket off, and then you got to take this big old water, like, I guess you call that the bypass or water outlet, something. But it's kind of involved. You got a bunch of bolts to take off. But as long as you don't mess those gaskets up inside there, you should be pretty good. And on this side, you just had to loosen these hoses right here. And there was a hose to pop loose over here. And the oil dipstick tube. And then it came pretty much straight off. So I'm going to get all this put back together. It's just a... I know I'm doing the transmission. I just wanted to show y'all that. So I'm going to go I actually got to go to the parts store to get these. So you want to torque those bolts down to, I believe, 10 foot-pounds. I'll have to check again to make sure. I'm pretty sure that's what that is. And then you'll want to torque the water outlet thing back on to the right specs. And I'll get that all put back on, and then we'll start mounting the transmission. Alright guys, I'm back. We're going to start bolting this tranny up. I got all the stuff taken off that I needed to, and I changed the valve cover gaskets and the oil pressure sensor, and we're ready to rock. I'm over here grabbing the bolts right quick. If you don't see me on the camera, that would be why. So, alright, here I am. Gonna slide this thing in here, and probably gonna have to lift the motor up or set it down. You just gotta kind of hold your tongue just the right way if you want to get this thing on. It's just a matter of getting it all lined up the right way, and once you get it all lined up and get a bolt started, I mean, it's pretty much all home free from there. Just make sure you don't cross thread a bolt when you're starting it in, because that can turn into a nightmare. Stripping out all the bolts. This one was actually really easy, it appears. The best way to know you got your bolts lined up is to get these little guide pins in their proper holes, and that's how you know that it is lined up and it's ready to rock. Sometimes you gotta manhandle these things. So I got those guide pins in there. That's actually the starter bolt there. So we're just gonna throw this bolt in. I know you can't see the bolts that I'm putting in, but it's just all the tranny bolts. It's pretty self-explanatory. There is 5 on this side, and then you have 1 over on this side, and you got 2 more on the front of the engine. So, like I said, pretty self-explanatory. And once you get all these bolts started, then you can get your ratchet or your electric impact, in my case, and start zipping them on. Just like I said, be really careful when you're starting them. Make sure you don't cross set them. Alright, I got all those tight. Now what I'm going to do is go to the front of this motor. I'm just going to spin it around right now. I got it up in the air. Now we're going to put these 2 bolts in right here. Alright, there's that. That is all the bolts for the transmission. So now we're going to move on to the torque converter. Try to keep this thing in the picture so y'all can maybe see what I'm doing here. So we're very lucky. We already got a bolt lined up. So I'm going to go get my Loctite. Grab these torque converter bolts. And you want to make sure and clean the material off the torque converter bolts, because if you don't have it clean, the Loctite's kind of pointless. I've already cleaned mine up, so just pointing that out. The Loctite will not work if you don't have a clean bolt and clean threads. Make sure this is coming out. And according to the state of California, this stuff could give you cancer, so probably want to wear gloves if you believe in California's theology. I'm not wearing gloves because I believe in California's theology. I just like to wear gloves. So all you do is you just go back, take your hand and rotate the torque converter until the bolt lines up. And good tip is once you get that bolt in, you want to snug it, because if you don't, it'll get caught while you're rotating it. But you don't want to get it too tight, because if you do, then you won't be able to get the other bolts lined up. So just kind of get it in there just a little bit snug. As soon as you start feeling some tension, stop right there. That way you still have some movement. And then we're going to come around to this front side and rotate the engine over. Alright, some Loctite on this one. I always use the red high strength. You probably get away with something a little lower strength if you want, but I say the stronger the better. These bolts take a lot of torque, so you want to have something on it that can hold it steady, because I have seen these bolts come out. Sometimes you get lucky and nothing happens, and other times you destroy a lot of stuff. So better to be safe than sorry. And I didn't get a chance to double check the torque specs, but I'm pretty sure it's like 85 foot-pounds, if I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna look it up right quick because I don't want to be wrong and over-tighten these things, but that sounds about right if my memory serves me correct. So once you get this last bolt in, you can obviously hammer it home, and it's nice to have a helper right now, so you can hold the crankshaft on the front while you're tightening the bolt. But if not, you can make it work. So I'm going to look up these torque specs right quick, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, so I looked up the torque specs, and I found between 45 and 75. So my 85 was a shade off, not too much though. So I'm just gonna kind of go right in the middle and put them at about 65. And that should be all we need to do. One thing that would be good for finding the correct torque specs would be to get you a subscription to the All Data. I mean, if you want to be a pro or anything like that, you can spend the thousands and get a huge contract. But if you just do it yourself, or like most people out there, it's cheaper. And I mean, I guess I consider myself a pro, and I still use alldataDIY.com, I think is what it's called. And it's about 15 to 20 bucks for a subscription, and it gives you all the information you need, and that's about all there is to know about that. It gives you any kind of wiring diagrams if you need them, or any kind of technical service bulletins or recalls if there is any on your vehicle. So it's a good thing to check out if you need some in-depth information. I did not for this, so I opted to not spend the $20. Now we're going to put this plastic shield on. Get some of this grime off of it. There's two little plastic shields. And then we're going to grab the starter while I'm over here too. I know y'all probably can't see me, but I got my... Hey guys, had some audio problems during this part of the video. I think I accidentally turned my mic off, but all I did was put the starter on. It's two 14mm bolts, and then I put the shields on that go around the starter and the flywheel. That was just a few 10mm bolts, not too hard there. And then I put the dipstick tube on the transmission. And then that was about all I did in this one. And at this point, I'm ready to drop it into the car and start bolting it back up. We are done. We got everything put together on this engine and transmission. So we will be ready to put that thing in tomorrow. And all I have to do now, before we drop it in, just because it'll be easier, is fix this connector right here. It's the one that broke, the bolt right below the starter. One of the transmission bolts has a stud coming out of it, and this just kind of screws in there. It's just a ground for some kind of system. I'm not exactly sure what, but it's definitely important. If the dealership did not need that, they would definitely not put it in, because the cheaper the better. So, and you might want to check out right at your exhaust. There was some of this insulation kind of hanging down on the exhaust, so I just ripped it off. I mean, if you wanted to do it exactly 100% right, you probably want to put some new insulation right there to prevent any kind of heat buildup, but I think it'll be okay. So we're just going to roll with it. So all we got to do is drop this motor in, or engine, excuse me, and bolt it up to the mounts and wire everything up and start it up and see what happens. And I will take y'all on a test drive as part of this video once I get it done, and hopefully it's a good test drive. So, alright guys, I got the car pushed back in the shop, and we are ready to put this engine and transmission back in here. You probably can't see them too well, but I got all the wiring harnesses pushed away the best that we can. So we're going to push this thing over here and set it in and start bolting it back up. We're going to have to get it up just a little bit more to go above the front of the car. There she is. You should have a good view of it now. And when you're setting the engine and transmission in, it's about the same way as when we pulled it out. You just want to take your time, be really careful, and I must have done this. Sometimes you make mistakes, That's one of the alternator bolts I'm going to have to replace. It must have grabbed when I was pulling the motor out. Even the best make mistakes. It does happen. But it won't happen again. So you just want to really nice and easy. You want to get this thing kind of moving just a little bit. And then just kind of work its way in there. Maybe go a little shade faster than that. Something about like that. And just work its way in there. Watch both your sides. Make sure you're not going to hit on anything. I know we caught on this little ABS motor when we were coming out, so I'm going to really watch that. Make sure we don't catch it going back in. And it looks like we're going to be clear of it. Definitely want to put this on before you get the engine and transmission all bolted up, because for one, you can't bolt the transmission side up. And once you get this thing set into place, it'll be very difficult to get this back on. There's the bracket here, 4 bolts, 15 millimeter. I think we did. Definitely. No wiring harness is trapped. Bolts are in the holes. So we are good. I'm still lined up over here. Yep. So we can go ahead and lower this all the way down and get this out of the way so we can start putting it back together. Go ahead and unhook this chain because it's no longer necessary, because these 2 front mounts can be set pretty easily. I can pull them back and forth to wherever I need to set them to. Of course, those will be probably one of the last things we do, because it was one of the first things we did, so I don't want them getting in the way. So the next thing we're going to do is probably go underneath. I'm going to get the car up in the air, and we're going to go underneath and get all the stuff under there bolted up. Got the exhaust to bolt up, a couple brackets, and a few more connectors, and then we'll slap the CV axles in, and we will tighten the transmission mount and the engine mount that's underneath. And then we'll come back up top and plug in all the connectors and hook everything up and see what happens. Guys, so I got the car up in the air and I got everything taken back apart so I can put the CV axles back in, and we're going to put those transmission mount nuts back on and put all this back together. And then we're going to go over to the other side and do the same thing. Put all that stuff back together. Put the engine mount nuts on. And then, let me grab my creeper right quick. We'll slide up under here. I know I've already shown y'all this before when I was taking it apart. more quick time. So I'm going to tie this wire harness up a little bit better. Zip tie it somewhere to where it won't rub or chafe anywhere or get hot and melt. And we got one connector right here to hook up. It's right here somewhere. That one right there, I do believe. And that's about all the connectors, I do believe. And then we just got the exhaust nuts. You can see one there, the other one is kind of impossible to see. But just got to tighten those up. I already got them on there and pretty much tight. And then we are done under here. Just got to put all that back together and put the wheels back on, set it on the ground, and then we'll start working on the top. I'm going to do all this. I'm not going to take a video obviously because it's going to be really hard to do it while I'm underneath the car. So I will see y'all back up top. Alright guys, I got all the stuff underneath tightened up. I got all the TV axles, the mounts, everything tightened down there. You shouldn't have to go back underneath there except for the problem with these transmission lines when we get to them. So we'll take a second to that. So what we're going to work on first is getting all this buttoned up over on this side. We're going to get the power steering wheel back in, the alternator, the ignition coil, put the hoses up, and put the belt back on. And we'll just kind of work our way around this way and finish up. Get started with the power steering wheel. Actually, no, let's start with the ignition coil. Let's slap in on there real quick. Hey guys, had some more technical difficulties. My microphone keeps acting up for some reason, so I'm just gonna tell y'all a little bit what I did here. All I did was finish putting the power steering pump together with the 313mm bolts, and then I hooked the return line back up to it. It's just some hose clamps, and then I put the serpentine belt on. That's pretty easy. Just got to use the ratchet and pull the tensioner back. And then I put the coolant reservoir on, just two 10mm nuts. And then I secured the distribution box back in its place with two 10mm nuts. And then I just basically started working my way around the engine, hooking all the connectors in with the cam connector in the front, the alternator wiring, the ignition coil wiring, and so on and so forth. I just started making my way around the front, and then at this point I should have some sound back. So here we go. This is the coolant temperature sensor connector. And then you got your oil pressure sensor. Go ahead and hook that stuff up right quick. Like I said, I know y'all can't really see what I'm doing, but if you're at the car doing it and you kind of just follow along with me, shouldn't be too hard to figure out where we're at and what I'm doing. You'll be able to kind of see it with your own eyes. This is a 13 also. Same thing with starter wire. You don't want to get it too tight, because you can break them really easy. So just get them on there and get them decently snug, and then just call it a day. Alright, put that there's like a little rubber cover that goes over it, so you don't have to run the risk of anything making contact with it, shooting sparks everywhere. Just kind of pop that back on around the nut, and you're good to go. Then you got one little wire that plugs in, it's your signal wire for the starter. Just snaps right into to a little connector right here. There's that. And you got next, we'll go ahead and put this lower hose back on and these compressor lines back on the compressor. Tighten them up. This compressor nut, about like the starter and the alternator, just snug, not too tight. We'll slide this hose back on. We're going to hold off on tightening it though, just yet, in case we got to turn it. So there's that. One more wire under here that we forgot about. Taken care of. We're going to just keep on working our way around with this wire harness. We're going to put these grounds on. Make sure and pay attention. Make sure you put all your ground wires back on. Like I said before, there'll give you lots of trouble you don't want if you don't put them on. Tranny connector. Plug that back in so we kind of got a heading of where we're going with this thing. Plug this ABS module back in. And go ahead and line it back up in its spot so we can get those nuts back on it. Yes. Okay. These connectors go right up here. Right under these fuel lines. Just throw that over there for now. We'll hook those up in a second. And these, if you remember, they just go right here. Snap in, and then there's 2 bolts, I believe, that hold it in, or if it might have just been one. I think all I see is one. So snap these in. They got those little gray sleeves. You just push over. I believe it's going to have something to hook right there. So there's those 2 connectors plugged back in. So now we got this connector right here. It's for the map sensor. Or map sensor. Mass airflow sensor. When we hook that air box back up, we'll go ahead and hook this high pressure cutoff switch back up. The air works beautifully on this thing. I'd like it to stay that way. And we got, alright, so we got the bracket to get off of here over on this old transmission. Give me just a second here. This bracket is to hold the 2 transmission lines into place. Here. See right here. It's pretty self-explanatory. Goes right where the transmission lines are. Even though we don't got them hooked up, I know that's where they go. So tighten this up. Tighten this down. That was a 15. Tighten this other ground right here. Go ahead to repair. Wherever it happened to go. This. Grab the nut for it. Has a 15 also. There's that. Those ground wires are hooked up. We got one more ground wire back here near the shifter linkage. Go ahead and get that on there, and that is a 13. Get that tight. You don't have to have these bolts super tight. You just want them good and snug so they make a good connection. Kind of snug them with this, and then just go a little bit more. Actually, just gonna have to get my regular ratchet over here. Tighten this up because there's not a lot of clearance over here. So make sure it's tight enough to make a connection and not get loose. Okay, so next we will make sure all these are hooked up first. would say we'd hook these AC lines back up, but I think we're going to leave them off for now so we have enough clearance to get the radiator in. Move these connectors out of the way for the all those computers right there in the airbox. Connector here, connector here. Let's see here. I think these are the cooling fan connectors. So we'll just kind of set those over here for now so they don't get in our way. And then, oh yeah, we'll go ahead and hook this overflow hose back up. Tighten it up. All the connectors, it looks like. Make sure them are out of the way. This trash out of here. Next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and tighten put the nuts on this ABS pump. 3 10mm nuts. They go right up underneath the tire area. Let me lower this thing down for you. If you want to, I suppose you could lift the car up, but they're pretty easy to get to. Just 3 of them right here. Just get them all started first and then snug them up. There's that. So that's good and snug. So let me grab my spray silicone. So put a little lubricant on the O-ring of that first solenoid. You don't need much, just a little bit. I like to use this spray and stay lubricant from WD-40. It's pretty good stuff. So just spray a little bit in the hole. Spray a little bit around it. See, enough just to lubricate it so you don't risk messing that O-ring up. And then it slides in that hole much easier. And then you just tighten that, and this fuel line just snaps back on here, like so. So we'll get my 10mm right here and tighten this bolt. You don't want to over tighten that one either. You can snap that first solenoid. We'll actually get these in place too. These heater core hoses. Actually, we're gonna hold off because I got a little issue. Came like this from the junkyard. I haven't really thought about what I'm gonna do to address it. Gonna have to fabricate something, but nothing I haven't had to do before. The bolt hole where the transmission dipstick tube is broken, so I'm gonna have to somehow fasten it in on there. So I'm kind of holding off on putting the shifter cable and stuff right down in this area so I can figure out how I'm gonna do that. So now we got the fuel line hook, this hook. Go ahead and find the wire that goes into this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pause video and I'm gonna try to figure out something that I can do with this dipstick tube to fasten it, because as it stands right now with no bolt, it's just going to pop out of that hole whenever you want to check your tranny fluid, and that won't be good because it'll start leaking and you won't get the right reading. So I'm going to try to remedy this situation, and then we will come back and finish up what we were doing. And I found that connected right here. So there's these connectors. Figure out how this works. clamps here. Anyway, there's those connections. We'll get those plugged in. I'm gonna get this remedied and I'll be right back. All right, so I think I've come up with an idea for the dipstick tube. Gonna try to tack it into place there with something, maybe some JB weld or something. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the radiator back in and get it all hooked back up. And grab it right quick, get these wires out of the way. Just set this radiator down in here. Try to hook it back up to this condenser. There was a little bracket right here. There's actually 3 brackets, but there's a little bracket right here that holds the condenser to the radiator. Let's go ahead and hook up the hoses that we need to hook up. Go ahead and hook these AC lines back up. This lower radiator hose, along with that tranny line, we're going to go ahead and we can wait. It'll be easy to put in down there. We'll go ahead and hook this lower radiator hose up though, so we ain't got to fool with it. Grab my pair of pliers, squeeze these clamps on. This clamp feels okay, so I'm gonna just go ahead and use it. I know I said I'd like to replace them, but I think it's gonna be just fine. That hose is tightened down. Okay, so next we're gonna get this cooling fan. Oh, let me tighten the AC lines. 13 millimeter. Kind of snug those. Now we're gonna, there's actually supposed to be a bolt that goes right here, so we're gonna try to find a bolt. It kind of supports those AC lines and keeps it from moving around too much. It was not there when I took it off. We're gonna try to find one to fit it. Shouldn't be too tough to find. I think we might have found one right now. Alright, let's grab that cooling fan, go ahead and put it on. Sits in here just like this. And I was correct, that bracket goes over here. That's why I wasn't able to figure that out. Sometimes you forget things really easily. Some people don't, but I do. But I always figure it out. We'll go ahead and throw these 10 millimeter bolts in here on each side. Don't want to get these too tight. It's just plastic. Break really easy. So that's getting tight. Now we're going to throw these brackets on here. Right here. This will hold everything together here. Nice and secure. Brackets, got that one on, so we'll get this one on now. We're just going to get them all started first and then we'll tighten it down real good. Alright, there's all that. Now I took these connectors to the fans up. just plug back in, and they got little zip tie type connectors that secure it. Alright, got those hooked up, and this wiring harness goes right here in this little clip. So go ahead and pop this clip back open, stick this wiring harness in it, tighten that up a little bit. Should be good right there. Okay, now we got all that. We'll go ahead and get this upper radiator hose hooked back up. And actually, I just remembered I haven't went and bought one of those yet, so I might have to get up a radiator hose. And we'll wait on this box here because I don't want to hook it up and then have to stick my arm back here for this dipstick tube. I'm going to zip tie this wire right here somewhere right in this area, because I just don't like the fact that it can flop around. It's supposed to hook right there, but that part's broken. So we're just going to zip tie it. We may even put one good zip tie around here, and then maybe zip tie it like that. So let me go do that right quick. Let me get some zip ties. Actually, one zip tie should work now that I got it tightened over here. Should be good to go. I don't think it's going to touch the exhaust. Just going to leave it like that. And we will go ahead and put the motor mounts on right quick. And I don't think those will get in my way. Remember, these are pretty straightforward. It's got 2 bolts through here, a bolt and a nut through the mount part at the engine. That, and these are 15s, so we'll go ahead and tighten all these down. Alright, motor mounts are secured. So now I think I'm at the point where I'm going to have to run to the parts store and get some JB Weld to fix that dipstick tube up. I will run there and we'll start this video right back up. Got the dipstick tube fixed. Now we're going to put these coolant lines on for the heater core. Let's put these clamps back on them. Squeeze them back on there. We're just going to leave these clamps on here. I know I said good idea to replace them with the screw on, but I can see these, so if they leak I'll be able to tell right away. So now we're going to hook the shifter cable up. So we're just going to bring that around here, and it's just got the 2 bolts that I got still screwed into the transmission, and then that pops onto the little shifter linkage. So we're going to run this right quick, get these bolts out of here. Car is in park, so when we hook this up, it should be lined up as long as this transmission is in park. If not, we'll have to adjust accordingly. We're going to bolt these up. It's definitely not in park, I don't think. That is probably park right there. I just had to take a phone call. It was from my beautiful wife that I love very much. So we got the shifter right here. It needs to run under this wire. So it just kind of runs through there. So just disconnect that ABS motor right quick. Put it up under here. And then we will run it underneath this ground. And the ground wire that goes to the back of the tranny, it goes over the top of the bracket to the shifter, because it's got a little spot where it zip ties to the bracket. So now we're going to put these bolts back in the holes and get these tight. And what I like to do after I get the shifter hooked up is I just like to go in the car and just move the gear shifter up and down to make sure there's not any weird feeling when you're shifting it. Make sure it's a nice smooth operation. Don't want to have this binding up and then eventually breaking the shifter cable. Then you can't get it out of park, whatever. So we're gonna get these bolts tight. Grab my 13 millimeter. I think that's right. So there it is. Let me grab my electric ratchet right quick. Zip these bad boys on here. And also we're gonna, now that I'm pretty sure we got that the little shifter linkage that hooks onto the transmission itself. Pretty sure we got it hooked on right, so I'm going to tighten that bolt too, and that is a 15 millimeter. Or excuse me, that's a nut. Either way, you get the point. So I'm going to grab my 15 millimeter. I think I still got it up here somewhere. Maybe I don't. We're just going to snug that down. You don't really want to get these. You want to get them tight. You don't have to overdo it. So now we're going to go into the car, make sure the shifter's moving fine. Let's go in here right quick. Check the shifter out first. And this is a floor shifter. So we'll just turn the key on to unlock it. And it's actually with no battery. I don't know what I'm thinking. With no battery, you have to find the shifter lease, which I think on these cars is not available. Hang on a sec, I'll be right back. Alright guys, I couldn't find the shift lock release. Sometimes they put it under these things, but I popped that off. That just pops off with some little clips. But I just went ahead and hooked the battery up lightly. I'm not done hooking everything up, so I'm going to disconnect it when I'm done. But I just wanted to make sure the shifter works. So you just turn the key on. Don't try to start it yet, because obviously you don't have no fluids in your transmission. So you just push the brake. We're just going to make sure it goes through all the gears. 3, 2, 1. 2, 3. Drive, neutral, reverse, and park. I think we're good to go. It is nice and smooth, so we are good there. I'm going to get this hooked back up and we'll start finishing the rest of the stuff. So we got that all hooked back up. Shifter seems to be working fine. I'm going to disconnect this battery shortly. We'll probably be hooking it back up very soon. So now that we got all that taken care of, the next thing we are going to do is put this these transmission lines in. So what we'll do is we'll start with the bottom one. And the bottom one goes, it's kind of hard to get to. I may have to jack it up for the bottom one actually, now that I see what I'm working with here. So I believe the bottom one goes, because you got one line that goes straight up into the transmission and then one line that goes straight into the transmission. And I think the bottom one goes straight up into the transmission, but I can't quite remember. No, I'm wrong. The top one, because it's obviously longer, this is obviously the top one, it goes to the one that goes straight into the transmission. You can see that? And what you do, if you have those clips that I talked about already in, you just take this and you put it in there and you just kind of gently push in and it'll snap in. Just make sure you have it all the way in the hole and kind of pull back on it, make sure it's not going to pop back out. And that's all you got to do with those. So this one will go straight in and this one will go straight out. So this is obviously the bottom one. And I'm going to grab those clips right quick, because I didn't put them back in those bottom adapters. So this one's going to go right here somewhere, if I can feel it. I'm gonna make this easier, and I'm gonna jack this side of the car up right quick. I'll be right back. Guys, I'm back. I'm gonna try to show y'all how I'm hooking these up. I can't guarantee how good this video is gonna be, but I'll give it a shot. So basically, all you gotta do is put the clips. We're gonna put the clips back in these, and then all you do is snap the line into these holes. Make sure, guys. So I got those lines hooked up, got the clips put in, and you want to make sure they go into that little plastic bracket pretty good. That way they don't rattle around. So now we're gonna go up top and hook those top parts of the lines up to the radiator, and then we'll be done with this. Right, guys, so we got those transmission lines hooked up. Now we're gonna put the air box in with the computers, and then we're gonna put the rest of the air box in, hook that ductwork up, and put those brackets back on. You have the three 13mm bolts on that side, and then 3 on this side. And then we're gonna hook the battery up on this thing, and we're gonna put the hood on, of course, and then we'll see what happens. I'll be right back. With these connectors, guys, it's pretty straightforward, just like when I had the video of taking them off. They're only gonna hook onto one connector. You're not gonna be able to mix them up. And this one right here goes to this small one right here. We're gonna hook the 2 big ones up first though. So, and they're color coded. You see how this one's gray and this one's black. If you look on the inside connector, this connector's gray and this connector's black. So pretty easy. So I just had to open this one back up. It was a little stuck. So you just get it on there, then you pull that tab over until it clicks, and you're locked on. Do the same thing with this one. Pull the tab over, locked on. And then this one's easier to plug in when you have it out of that spot. So you just hook it in. May actually go this way. Hold on just a second. I'm gonna hook that in because I can't do it with one hand, so I'll be right back. You got all those connectors hooked in, and you want to make sure the wiring harness goes through right here at the bottom of this air box. And then you want to grab this mass airflow sensor wire and just make sure it's accessible for when you put your air duct back on. So now we're going to grab the other part of this air duct, which is this part right here. And it has these little tabs that lock in to the bottom right here. So 1 second. There it is. I got it snapped back into place. So now we're going to grab the other part of our air box. This piece right here. This goes where the air filter is, and then this hooks in to the throttle body right there. It's pretty straightforward, this stuff here. I'm just showing you what I was doing. I'm going to hook that up right quick. Alright, so we're going to hook this bracket up now. You just line it up, start all the bolts before you tighten it. Those are 13mm bolts. And the shifter cable goes underneath, and there's a little clip that clips onto it, kind of hold it into place there. So I'm going to do this right quick, and I'll be right back. Okay, now we're going to do the other side. So unscrew these bolts here, same way as that other side, except it doesn't have the shifter cable. So we're going to go ahead and do this other side, and then we're going to hook the battery up too. Remember, when you're hooking your battery, you want to always start with your positive terminal first and then your negative terminal. So we're going to get that hooked up, and then I'll be right back. All right, I got the battery hooked up now. Now we're going to put this upper hose that I went and purchased last night at O'Reilly's on. Remember, the one on the first video was dry rotted. So I'm going to put this on and put some new screw-on clamps on. And especially with those clamps that come from the factory that you have to clamp down. If you change the hose, it's just a good idea to get a different clamp, because those clamps are like, they got like not a memory so much, but it's just once it clamps onto a certain hose and you put a different one on it, it's not going to tighten it as much. So I'm going to put this hose on with 2 new screw-on clamps, and I'll be right back. Got everything hooked up, guys. I got the hose screwed in good. It was a cut to fit hose. Most of the time that's how these upper hoses are on this car. I just had to trim some off to get it to fit. And now I'm going to put the tranny fluid in. And with the way I had to fix up the dipstick tube from it being broken, it's going to be a little difficult to get the tranny fluid in, but I'll make it work somehow. And then I just got to put the spark plug wires on, and we're going to fire this thing up and see what happens. I'll be back when I'm done. Alright guys, I've got all the fluids in. I put about 4 or 5 quarts of tranny fluid in for now, and I'm going to check it once we get it going. This transmission, I believe, takes 10 quarts from empty, but I don't think it was completely empty because I never really fully drained it. Because even though you drain the bottom pan, there's still some in the torque converter and there's some in the radiator. So I'm just going to start it up. 4 or 5 quarts should be enough to get it started, and then we'll check it out and see if we need any more. And I filled it back up with coolant. This is a really, I mean, probably not something you buy just to work on something once, but this helps to bleed the air out. It's got different fittings for all your radiator caps, and you just fill this up, and as the car's running, it'll suck the air down. It'll bubble the air out before you bleed the system. And I just checked the oil. The oil's good. So we are gonna turn the key on and off a few times to make sure we don't have any fuel leaks or anything that I don't see. And we are gonna fire this thing up. So let's go do this thing. So I'm just gonna turn the key on and off just a couple times. And then I'm gonna go check and make sure I don't see anything leaking from any of the fuel lines that I disconnected. Just getting this fuel pump primed up, so we're just gonna check. And the only place I disconnected it was right here, so that's really the only place that it could leak. So I think we're good here. I don't see nothing there. Hang on just a second. No leaks under the car. So we are gonna start this thing up and let it warm up a little bit. Alright, started right up, sounds good. Sounds like I'm gonna have to fix the exhaust. Sounds like the exhaust is leaking. Actually, I'm gonna shut that off. The exhaust, I was a little worried about that gasket, and I think my worries were correct. I think the exhaust gasket, which is right back here where that bolts up, I think it is leaking. Either the gasket is wore out or something else. So I am going to fix that so we don't have a exhaust leak that sounded like that. I mean, the car sounded pretty cool, but it's probably not going to run great with that much of an exhaust leak. So I'm going to fix that right quick, and I'll be right back. Guys, so I got the exhaust fixed. It was just one of the nuts needed a washer on it because of the spacing. It wasn't tightening it all the way. So we are going to fire it back up again. That sounds a heck of a lot better. I'm going to let it warm up for a second, and then I'm going to check the tranny fluid, and we're going to top it off and see what happens. I'll be right back once I get the fluid topped off, and we'll go for a test drive. Alright guys, so while I'm waiting on it to warm up, I got all the fluids topped off, and I just wanted to show y'all I'm putting the hood back on. The best way to get this hood lined up is, of course, you know, once you get all the bolts tight, you close it and do an eye test, make sure the gaps are all even and everything. But the best and surefire way to make sure it went on the same way it came off is, it's kind of hard to see in the picture, but there's a little groove where the bolt sat from where it was put in the first time. And if you can line it up as close as you can with where the bolt was sitting the first time, then it'll be pretty close, unless your hood was already off to begin with, and then you're going to have to just do an eye test and just try to get it the best you can. But I'm going to tighten these bolts up, and then I'll close the hood and show you. Once you get it lined up, it should be pretty straight. So one moment. Not shutting the hood all the way, obviously, but the gap looks pretty good on this side. Looks pretty good on this side too. Looks pretty even. We're gonna roll with that. So I'm gonna just shut it and see. If you look, it's pretty dang close. If you're a perfectionist, you could probably get it a little better, but I think it looks all right. So we're just gonna roll with it. All right, I'm gonna finish letting this thing warm up, and I'm gonna check the tire pressure because it's been sitting for about a week or two to make sure all the tires are good. And then the next video will show us test driving it. One thing I forgot to mention too, guys. I didn't forget to do it, but I just forgot to mention it. You want to top your power steering fluid off when you do this, because when you pulled the motor and the tranny, you drained all that power steering fluid out of there. So you definitely want to top that off. You just fill it up and then turn the wheels back and forth several times, and then check it again. It should quiet down. It'll probably be a little loud at first, but it should quiet down once it gets all lubricated. So just letting you know, don't forget to do that. And it's normal to see a little smoke. I mean, we pressure washed everything, so it should be pretty clean. But it's normal to see a little smoke because there's some residue on the exhaust manifolds from stuff dripping on it. So I wouldn't be too worried. If it gets really smoky, you might want to check and make sure you got a leak. And of course, it's always a good idea, just to be safe, to keep a fire extinguisher handy, just in case you have some kind of fire and you need to get it out fast. So, but we should be good here. I don't think we got nothing to worry about there. Just a little bit of smoke from the exhaust burning off. So, all right, I'll be right back. Guys, I'm ready for the test drive. I'm gonna have to roll the windows down because it's really hot here, and I don't like charging the AC till I know everything's gonna work, so I don't waste any refrigerant. So let me buckle up right quick. We're gonna go take this thing for a spin. I ended up having to put about, I want to say 7 to 8 quarts in the transmission, and it was almost at the hatch. I'm going to drive it a good bit, and then we'll pull it back down here and check it. So let's go see what's happening. It goes in reverse. That's always a good thing. Just going to cut this air off because it don't even feel good. I'm gonna go slow here. My shop road is very bumpy. It's not really made for cars. You just gotta take it easy through here. Got a lot of drainage from the rain. So we're just gonna get out of here nice and slow. Once we get out on the road, we'll kind of hammer it a little bit, make sure it's shifting through all the gears good. The power steering pump's making a little bit of noise, but like I said, once that's drove, it should quiet down pretty good. I can't quite remember how it sounded before, but all right, we're gonna stop here and just kind of try to get through all the gears. Shift it through the second. I gotta stop right here. We're gonna have to get back on the road a little bit. Shift it through that gear, see if it goes into overdrive. Yep, there it went. This thing is running phenomenally. It's smooth, no check engine lights. So it is running great, guys. I'm super stoked about this. This transmission feels wonderful. It's not slipping. Shifts through the gears nice and smooth. It's not real hard. So I'm going to finish up this test drive, and then I'll go back and check the fluids, and we should be good to go on this thing. So this is my first successful video, and we didn't have to pull the transmission out again. I'll be back. Guys, I brought it back into the shop. All the fluids are good. I'm just going to let it cool down and check the coolant, and then I'm going to recharge the AC system. I'll do a little quick video on that too, kind of show you how to recharge it. I use the actual gauges. I don't use those little cheap, useless things they sell at the parts store. But I use a gauge. I'll pull a vacuum on it, and we'll charge the AC, make sure it's working good, and take it for one quick more test drive, and it should be good to go. So I will be back when we do the AC video. Guys, so I said I'd do a little quick AC video. So I just got this set of Pro Set AC gauges. It's got your low side, your high side, and then your yellow line that hooks up either to your vacuum pump or your canister to charge the AC with. So you just hook the high side line where it goes and the low side where it goes. What I'm doing now is I'm pulling a vacuum on the system to get all the moisture out of there and to make sure there's no leaks before we put the refrigerant in. And once I pull a vacuum, I like to pull a vacuum for at least an hour. That way it sucks all that moisture out of there, makes the system run a lot better. And then once I get this vacuumed out, I'll come back and I'll show you how to charge it. Alright guys, so I got a vacuum pulled on this. It has been vacuuming for over an hour and there's no leaks. It is really good to go. So all you do, I have a refrigerant scale that measures the refrigerant out of the canister. So all you got to do is you take your yellow hose, or whatever color it is on yours. Most of them are yellow, I think. And you just screw it on there. Get it on there. Get it on there nice and tight. And go ahead and open this system up. You want to have your valves closed on both of those. I don't have my high side hooked up. And you charge through the low side anyway with the car running. You can charge through the high side with it off. But my high side has a small little leak in the part that clips in. So I just leave it off because I can get most of it through the low side. So you turn this valve on, and then what you want to do is you go up here and just unscrew this just a little bit to let some of the air out. I'm gonna need 2 hands, so you just want to unscrew it just until you start hearing some air hissing, and then you're good to go. So make sure these are all tight too, so you don't lose no refrigerant. And then to set up the scale, you turn it on obviously, and wait for it to load up, and then zero it out. And then what you want to do, I always like to set this can on upside down because it enters the system a lot faster. So set it on there, and it'll tell you how many pounds are left in the can. This one's getting close to empty. It's got about 8 pounds in it. So what you do is once it gets the measurement, you zero that out, and then you look over here to see how much you need. And this car takes 1.4 pounds for the V6. So 1.4 pounds would be a pound and, let's see, I'm trying to do my math in my head. It'd be almost a pound and a half. A little bit less than a pound and a half. So all you do is you open your low side and you just watch your scale down here. And when it gets close to about a pound and a half, which would be 1 pound and about 8 ounces, we'll stop it right there. And sometimes you can get it to take the whole charge without starting the car. Other times you have to start it up, but either way, it's fine. It looks like this one may do us. So, just let the charge up here. Still going, so I'm gonna let it keep going until it decides to stop taking it in. It's starting to slow down a little bit. It's not too bad. Of course, like I said, you know, this refrigerant scale is a little pricey, but if you're doing it a lot, it pays to have it. So you know you're getting the right amount of refrigerant in. It works great. And then of course you have to be some type of commercial industry to get a big can of 134. So that'd be kind of hard to come by. But this is a good way to do it. I can't afford one of those $10,000 machines, so I got this. Works fine for me. So it stopped at 1.4, so I'm just gonna get this out of the way, make sure nothing's gonna hinder us starting up, and I'm gonna plug this mass airflow sensor back in. I had to unplug it to get to that high side, so I'll be right back. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and just start it up and turn the AC on high. Make sure it's on cold, high, and recirculate. And that should suck it in there. It's probably sucking it all in already. Should start going here in just a second. Oh. I'm gonna make sure that I got the AC button on. Sometimes And nope, it's not on. Now it's on. Should start sucking it through here soon. This can is really low, so probably gonna have a hard time getting a lot of it through. But I'm gonna get this thing to about 1.8. Then I'm gonna check out the air. It should be good to go because it worked before. So I just wanted to show y'all how to do that. And then after you're done, all you do is disconnect the lines and put the caps back on, and you are good to go. Alright, thank you guys for watching my videos. I hope you learned something from them and found them useful in whatever you were working on. Please subscribe to my page because I intend on doing more videos in the future. So if you subscribe, you'll be able to stay up to date with that. And please bear with me with the videos. I will get better with them, but this is my first time doing this, so it's going to take me a minute to catch on and learn the tricks of the trade. So just stay with me. I promise they'll get better. And once again, thank you so much. Leave a comment or suggestion in the comment section if you want. And you can share this page with whoever you want. And thanks again, and have a blessed day, and we will see you soon.